Yeah, so let's try this again. I'm gonna add Coleman and see if yes. So Coleman is available. Coleman and Coleman.
Oh my gosh.
This is funny, Coleman.
Sometimes I feel like, it's just me and you back in college, and then sometimes I'm reminded that we're really far away from college, We're not tech savvy.
That is so funny. That is so true, though.
What do you call the next generation?
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. I'm gonna see if I can. Come on, Bailey. Ah, we've lost you again, man. Let me see. So let me add Coleman again. Awesome. Okay. Here we go.
What happened there? Was that me or
I
you?
don't know.
Dude, my phone just glitched out, dude.
Yeah, I told you, Coleman. You know what? You have better network.
Dude, I got great network here, man.
No,
You
you
crazy.
don't. No, you don't. Man, well, I am so glad that you're here. And we actually started this conversation back in March. And, you know, you were here in March. I finally talked you into coming to visit, and you came. And we had a really great time back in March. And I've tried to get you to come back since then, and you've not been able to come because you were supposed to travel, but your trip ended up not going through because you left here and you were supposed to travel to what were you going again?
So the last time I was there, I mean, I was planning on getting back to America, and is that some feedback on my end or your end?
I think it's on your end.
Outside. But yeah, yeah. So I was planning on just getting ready to leave the country,
Uh-huh.
South America. So yeah, like I said, I went up there and spoke, and then a week later, I was in 2 days before I left. Uh, it is
The feedback is terrible.
But 2 days before I was supposed to head out, the government
Uh-huh.
informed me I couldn't come. So I've been stuck here ever since.
Em, you mind if I use your earpiece? Cool, man. I'm gonna try something else, man. This has to work because like I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Me too, dude. So crazy. The problem is, I love the fact that there's 7 people watching right now. 7.
Yeah.
Oh, did it? It's all gone.
All right. Let's try this, man.
Yeah. And it's perfect. Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so like I was saying, I was just getting ready to leave the country, and I was supposed to be in a lot of countries by now, and I've just been stuck here ever since. Which was pretty disappointing at first, if I'm being honest. As soon as I figured out I couldn't go down to South America, I was just super bummed. But I think the first after a couple of days, just being a little bummed out about it. This is something that's affecting every single American. It's affecting people all around the world. As me and you're going to talk about in a little bit, it's affecting people around the world a little bit more than it's affecting us right here. But in the meantime, there's a virus that comes out and it makes everyone stop doing what they're doing. Everyone's got to stop, stay at home, quarantine themselves. Everyone's schedule is adversely affected. And so the whole time I began to move into a place, okay, Lord, what are you trying to teach me in this moment? What are you trying to because, if you look at any calamity throughout Scripture, I think that's the Lord is always trying to teach his people something. And so me as an individual, it's God, what are you trying to teach me? And to the church, it's, okay, Lord, what are you trying to teach the church in this time? How do we need to change what we're doing? And there's a whole lot of answers to that. In the past 2 days, I've just I think one thing that I started to try to do was I started to try to, in pursuit of that prayer, become more and more rigorous and more and more kind of methodical in my approach to God and to service. But these last 2 days, I feel like Lord just keeps stripping away more and more. I think now it's to the point where it's like just getting down to those two great commandments: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. And just getting to that point where it's like, okay, God, do I love you with all of my heart, soul, and mind? And what does that look like? What does just abiding in the love of God look like? Not just knowing God, not just serving God, but genuinely loving God. So, that's a long answer.
No. This is awesome. So I'm glad you mentioned that there are a lot of things happening right now, and that's so true. So because you and I talked earlier today, we talked twice today, and the first conversation, one of the things we talked about was how there are things happening in the world, and there are things happening also here in America, and I said today we're going to focus on the conversation on things happening in the world, and then tomorrow I'm having another chat with friends where I'll focus on things happening in America. So before we even get to things that are happening, you have an amazing testimony, man. You have an amazing testimony, and I still remember the day when we were at North Cleveland. Do you remember upstairs when in the Cleveland prayer room, and you were like, I'm about to go pray because I feel like the Lord is telling me to move to Nepal and all of that. So last time when you were here in March, we talked a lot about Nepal and India. We didn't explore all your work there, but we covered a whole lot of it. This time I want us to talk about what's happening right now, what the Lord's doing right now, and we're going to talk about so I have my notes here of things I want to talk about. I'm basically using my son's David's how do they call this? Board game, something. My sister.
Man, I thought that was actually David's handwriting.
No, come on, man. But so I want us to talk about what's the Lord doing right now. And then we're going to talk about the current work also in Africa. And it's a lot of craziness, as you mentioned, going on. Somebody told me, it's like the enemy is attacking us from different angles. Health, our peace of mind, and so much going on. So you and I today, we're going to focus on things that is happening outside of America, because usually you spend more time outside of America than you do in America. So we'll focus on what you're more familiar with. So talk to me. What is the Lord doing right now?
What's the Lord doing right now in the homes, or?
So what's the Lord doing right now in your life, in the home? Because last week you shared a very powerful testimony with me. I want you to begin to open with that testimony and then move on from that.
Yeah, well, like I said, what's the Lord doing in my life right now? I think the Lord's just trying to get me back down to the basics. God doesn't love us for the stuff that we can do for him. God just loves us. And the first thing that he requires out of us is that we just love him back. Serving God, knowing all that is important. But at the very basis, we just need to love God. I think that's something to where a man's ways is right in his own eyes. We think we love God much more than we actually do. But that's something that's going on in my life right now. You mentioned, what's been happening here recently. And I've seen a couple of people from Restoration Church hop on this live stream, which is awesome. About 2 weeks ago, and again, we'll get to this in a little bit, but with all the projects I'm working with around the world, I begin to hear, and as I'm talking with them daily on WhatsApp, just kind of the major struggles that they're going through. And again, we'll mention some of those struggles here in a little bit. But one thing that I did was I made out this little form, and I got all of the project directors to fill it out, and they just responded. And as they initially began to respond, I just got a little overwhelmed, and I said, God, I need $5,000, like right now, Lord. I need $5,000 by the end of this week. And I just began to pray. Now, in my brain, getting $5,000 is not an easy thing to do, especially with churches closed down. I was just thinking about who can I call right now who I haven't already called so many other times. And then there was a pastor of a church called Restoration Church here in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area. And he just texted me that Saturday. Again, I prayed that prayer on Thursday. That Saturday, this pastor texted me. And he says, hey, man, I just got this wild idea. Why don't you come to my church tomorrow? And I said, sure. I had no clue, what we'd be doing or anything like that. We just sit down. We have an interview just like me and you are doing right now. And we just begin to talk. And the craziest thing happened. About 15 minutes into it, the pastor just says, you know what, church, I feel like we're supposed to raise $5,000 for Coleman right now.
So this is while he was interviewing you, he said, I feel like we should raise $5,000. And you didn't even tell him that you wanted you've been praying for $5,000.
I didn't tell him about any needs. I didn't tell him about anything.
Wow.
I just prompted him. He said that that was what the Holy Spirit prompted him to do. And man, $5,000 was raised almost instantly. The church ended up raising over $12,000, which is insane. Okay, so get this. This is what's crazy, dude. Okay, so that happens. That church raises just over $12,000, Restoration Church in Atlanta. And then the day that they texted me the total, a church that I spoke at last September, an elderly couple in that church just wrote Coleman Bailey on a check for $2,000, put it in the tithe envelope, and then another man saying that he had $100 that he wanted to bless the ministry with. Okay, so all of that came up to be $14,500. Now, again, talking about need. This is what's freaking crazy. This is so freaking crazy.
So hold on. Let's backtrack. You've been praying for God to bless you with $5,000 you can send to the orphanages in Africa. And this pastor, without even knowing what you've been praying about, told his congregation, I feel like we should raise $5,000 for Coleman. And you end up raising over $14,000 in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. So again, going back to, I sent this thing out to all these project directors. And the only thing I was trying to raise money for was to put food on kids' plates, man.
Wow.
The cost of inflation, again, something that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. Am I super shiny on your camera, or is that just me?
That's okay, man. Yeah, here you go. You're super shiny.
That's the glory.
But that's okay. It looks much better if you step back a bit.
Okay.
No, it's not helping. Don't worry about it, man. You look good.
So the coronavirus has caused economies to shut down around the world. And again, we can get more into detail about this. But the cost of food has skyrocketed. And so what I did was I just took the average cost of inflation, and I know what it costs to feed all these kids at every single project. And we added those two numbers together. And get this, so the number we got was $14,400 is what we needed. And
wow,
remember the same day that pastor texted me, that other church texted me, and that one guy texted me, and all together they gave just about $14,500. Isn't that crazy, man?
Man,
money out, and kids are getting fed right now.
Amen, amen, man. That's awesome, man. I mean, like when the Bible says that God supplies our needs even beyond what we even ask. Like, this is a perfect. You were just hoping for 5,000, but
Yeah.
God knew exactly how much the kids needed.
Yeah.
And He provided exactly almost to the very dollar.
Yes.
Of what the kids
and just a little bit over, man.
a little bit over.
That's how God works.
Man.
Dude, I got a story just like that. We can talk about it in a little bit. We'll start talking about Africa. I mean, it's crazy what the Holy Spirit does.
Man, I am so pumped right now. I mean, we have a lot to talk about, and the last time we talked, because I really want us to cover some things. So, in Africa, where you've worked, Congo is one of the countries that you have an orphanage. If I remember correctly, you went to Congo and there was an orphanage that was kind of like collapsing, and you helped put it back together.
Yeah, that was So DR Congo. I didn't mean to cut you off right there, but
no, go ahead.
Yeah, so DR Congo. Again, this is part 2 of this series. Part 1 was several months ago. If you're watching this now, so we're not really going to talk about Asia that much because that's what we really talked about in that first go around. But DR Congo. That altogether was just a wild story. For those of you who don't, DR Congo, ever since they were a colony, has just gone through immense war, and so much of that is in the eastern part of the country, right around Goma, and in North Kivu. All of the Ebola in the world right now is pretty much in North Kivu. The world's epicenter for Ebola is in North Kivu. And on top of that, they just have a ton of war. And we can get in, it's very complex, a lot of factors in that war. But yeah, last year when I was in Africa, I had a lot of people discourage me from trying to go into DR Congo, but I just felt compelled to get over there for a couple of reasons. There's a couple of projects that Serving Orphans Worldwide has been working with for some time. And there is a Church of God project where the Church of God just built a building there. And I went over there to help launch that project. So train people, hire people, and then, even find the children. And so while I was over there, I was in the world's epicenter for Ebola. The World Health Organization has been getting a lot of attention lately. While I was there, the World Health Organization said, hey, Ebola's gotten uncontrollable. It's a global emergency was the words that they used. Within 12 hours of them making that announcement, I flew in on this little rickety plane, landed on a dirt track in Butembo, which is the epicenter for Ebola, which is what, they reference constantly. But while there, was just going through the jungles of North Kivu, connecting with pastors who have been there for a while, I've never seen more human suffering than I have in DR Congo. I've never seen more children suffering. suffering. I've been in urban areas and rural areas. I've never seen more human suffering than that. While I was out there in the jungles, I encountered probably 250 children I would deem worthy of coming in to this orphanage, this rescue home, this children's center. We were able to bring in 17 at the time. And so that's some of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. What makes this child, worthy of coming to this project? What makes that child not? What we did was we just chose the children who we thought, if we don't take this child might be dead in 6 months. More than 15 children, because we want, you want to establish a culture. These kids have all got some very traumatic backgrounds. Some of these kids have seen their parents killed in front of them. A lot of these parents have died from disease. And so, 4 of these children were found in just a little abandoned mud house.
Man.
4 years old. They were all malnourished. Children, their hair will start to turn a lighter color whenever they're severely malnourished, systemically malnourished. Their hair was all a light brown. Kids come from traumatic backgrounds, and you really have to establish a culture. If you just bring in, 40 kids at one time, it'll just be mayhem, and it won't be good for any child. So you have to bring them in slowly. You have to grow sustainably, and that's what we did. But man, I'm telling you, that was some of the roughest times I've ever had to make. Roughest decisions I've ever had to make was right there. That was all happening in DR Congo. I've got some crazy stories from there. There was a time where I was having to hide in the back of a trunk for a while going across the country. I'm trying to get this lighting right. My camera's flipping out. I guess I'm too white, dude. There was a time where we got stuck out in the jungle, and the 2 Congolese guys I was with, because when I travel, it's just me traveling. They thought that we were going to die out there, and there was a great chance, but man, God intervened. I said earlier, I got a cool story, like something like that happened just here recently with Restoration Church and these other churches. When I came back from DR Congo, we had launched this project. We had 17 kids in it, and I come back, and Serving Orphans Worldwide is the group I'm with, and I go up to them. I said, "All right, guys, we got 17 kids in this project. It's going to cost this much to rent, or this much to run the project each month. We got to do this." And they responded, "Hey, our coffers are empty right now. We don't have money." And so, I'm always going to act before I think. And so I'm thinking, how the heck am I going to pay for this? And
so you started a project that you didn't have the money to pay for.
100%. Yeah, I had the money to pay for 1 month, which is what I did. And so I came back to America, and I am just overwhelmed. I'd only been here for a couple of days, and then there was this church in Georgia, and it was a Wednesday night, and this pastor said, "Hey, man, why don't you come and talk about what you're doing down there?" And so I went over there, wasn't expecting much, just a kind of a more of a rural church, small church. Wednesday night, there's probably 40 people there. And so I get up there and I start speaking and just telling stories just like I'm doing right now. And this pastor gets up, and again, I hadn't mentioned to him that I had no budget for this project at all or anything like that. And I was telling stories about all over Africa. And this pastor gets up and he says, "Coleman, that project that you mentioned in DR Congo, how much does it cost to run that project each month?" And so I told him the number, and I said, and I need to raise some budget for that thing. Man, craziest thing happened. again, I wasn't announced to come there. No one prepared to give anything. These people just start saying, I can take care of a month. I can take care of a month. We raised $15,000 that one night.
In one night?
Yeah, with 40 people there. And that was a full year's budget for this project. Which, again, step back, it's amazing what you can do with $15,000 overseas.
So you raised a 4-year budget in one night in like under 2 hours.
In an hour. Yeah. It was insane.
Man.
I mean, that's 100%. I'm not a fundraiser, dude. I'm not a fundraiser.
I know, but like, you seem to have favor everywhere you turn. But and that's amazing. I think part of it is because you have a heart for these kids and you have a heart for the Lord, and God is just honoring that, you know, and that's huge. So like, I want to go back to Congo, because I've seen in the news in the last couple of weeks that they just had an outbreak of Ebola again.
Yeah, man.
So Congo right now, they are facing coronavirus with all the economic hardship that comes with it. They have now there's an outbreak of Ebola in one part of Congo, and you know we all know how dangerous Ebola is. And on top of that, like this is malaria season too.
Yeah. I'm trying to fix this.
That's like triple health attack in just one region of the world. And you have an orphanage there. How are the kids doing?
Yeah, and again, you know, we have 3 projects there. We're working with like 200 children in just the orphanage there. The 3 orphanages, a total of 200 children. And then, you know, a lot of these projects operate as feeding centers as well, and so we're feeding a lot of kids inside of our projects as well. Probably another 300 children are being impacted through those projects, but they stay with caregivers and all that. But again, like you said, man, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, for years they've been controlling this Ebola, and they've been doing it primarily by controlling it to a couple of cities in North Kivu, Butembo and Beni, and like you said rightly, there was just an outbreak of it. Now, with Ebola, we'll talk about those 3 diseases. First, Ebola. With Ebola is an extremely lethal virus. I mean, you get Ebola and you're dead in 2 weeks. I mean, it just puts you out. I mean, within a few days, you're bleeding out of your nose, your eyes, and yeah, I mean, it's extremely lethal. With coronavirus is there. It's not that widespread, but it's there, and it's enough to cause the economy to shut down, like anywhere in the world. And then we'll talk about malaria in just a second. But yeah, 2 of our projects are in Goma, and one is in a city called Masisi, which is just a very violent area. Masisi is, but it's all in North Kivu. This area borders Uganda and Rwanda, and so whenever something like this happens, Rwanda and Uganda will shut the border.
Wow.
And so most of these goods are already coming from Uganda and Rwanda. A lot of products are coming from Kenya through these countries into Congo. And so when something like...
Because Congo is inlocked, right? It's inlocked.
Right. There's no coast here. And so, yeah, it's in the heart of Africa. DR Congo is actually 3 times bigger than the state of Texas. It's a huge country. And you have all of these cities, but none of them are really connected by a road system. And so like I said, most of these goods are actually coming in from outside the country. Again, DR Congo, in addition to disease, has been engaging with war internally for years in militant groups. And so that really disrupts the economy's ability to produce these things in-house. And so this has just caused mass economic turmoil. Ebola has and the coronavirus has. It's caused mass inflation. I was just talking with the director of one of these projects a few hours ago, and this is exactly what we're talking about. We were able to send them a nice bit of finances to help this month. Now, again, there's needs coming up next month, but right now we were able to help them out this month with some extra funds because, I mean, the cost of goods has just skyrocketed. At a very base level, everything's gone up 20-30%. But then on staple goods like rice and beans, it's gone up double, triple, depending on the good. Now, with the coronavirus, what that's done is it shut down a lot of the local hospitals. Similar to here in America, elective surgeries have gone out the window, and they're really encouraging people to, if you're not like very sick, don't come in. That same thing has happened in DR Congo. So you have the Ebola virus and the coronavirus. Both of these things have caused people to be reluctant towards going to the hospital, which is, whatever. But right now it's the rainy season in much of Africa, which means mosquitoes are blooming. And every single year, every single project, it's just going to happen. About 3-4 kids are going to get malaria. Malaria is completely, it's a rough thing to get. It'll knock you out, but you can take medicine that'll take care of it for you. But
it's rough. I've had it several times growing up, man. I can tell you that it's really rough.
Good.
No, and you told me all the times you've been in Africa, you've never had malaria.
I don't feel like a legit worker.
You've never had malaria, and you've never taken the shots. Yeah. What kind of immune system do you have?
Dude, when you start eating food off the streets in Kathmandu, your immune system gets a little built up.
There you go. Yeah, so back to the issue of malaria and these kids. So you say, so if a kid right now happen to have malaria, how will they survive if they can't go to the hospital?
Yeah, and so it's really depending on where the project is and how many hospitals are near them. Some of them have access to like some certain pharmacies to where they can get some malaria medicine. Others don't, and so it takes an immense amount of prayer. There's a kid in DR Congo right now at a project called Flamme d'Amour, and he has malaria right now.
Wow.
And so they can't get the access to the medicine right now. So it's just been a ton of prayer that the Lord.
So this kid is sick with malaria, does not have access to a hospital.
Right.
So our two options is either God heals her or she'll end up dying.
Yeah, I mean, and malaria is one of those things where you can survive, but man, it's not like 100% fatal if you get malaria and untreated, but I mean, it can be. I mean, malaria is very fatal. A lot of these children in these orphanages, their parents, helicopters flying over me, but a lot of these kids, their parents have died from malaria. The reason why they're in an orphanage is because their parents have died from malaria specifically. Malaria, again, is something that, you take some pills, you're good in 2 days, but it's something that's just killed people all over Africa. And so, I mean, if you're watching this and you're looking for ways to pray, please pray that the Lord would just protect these homes from mosquitoes. I've done a lot of things in my power to be able to provide mosquito nets, but you can't keep a kid in a mosquito net for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But please pray for protection for these kids, and that any child like Gabriel in DR Congo, that the Lord would heal him, and that the Lord would heal these other children, and then that this virus would come to a close so that these medical centers can be reopened. But
we will be praying for the kids, man, that God will just protect them from everything going on right now. So I have my notes. I'm going through my notes, man. So let's talk about some of the work that is happening right now. So you were supposed to go to South America. Now, this was supposed to be your first trip to South America, right?
Yeah, I've been to South America once. I was doing an ecumenical thing there, church thing. It had nothing to do with orphan care. But yeah, this is my first time there. South America is going through a lot right now. Argentina in particular. If you're watching this and and any type of poem I say catches your ear, you can go to SOWW.org. That's SOWW.org, and you can find any of these projects. But there's a project in Argentina called Quinta Batel, and Argentina has got the third highest inflation in the world. Zimbabwe, I was just doing a live interview with the director of a project in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's got the second highest inflation in the world, and that's before the virus. And so when this virus hit, again, it caused mass economic confusion, and Argentina shut down the banks for like 2 months or something like that. But the home had no access to get any type of funding. And even after they shut it down, I mean, I was looking for ways to just, hop on some emergency vehicle down to get to Argentina. These kids, for a while, were just eating tomatoes and lettuce for a little while, just because they had fun. They couldn't pay their staff. They couldn't feed the kids. It was just insane. But the Lord opened up some avenues through some local businessmen to be able to meet some needs there, and thank God, just last week we were able to wire some funds down there for the first time in a while.
Yeah. So that's just one country in South America. Now, most of your work is focused in Asia and Africa. So what work would you be doing in South America?
Yeah, so there's a couple of projects that Serving Orphans Worldwide is connected to down in South America. Again, I am not familiar with the South American context at all, and so going down there was just going to kind of be an informational trip for me. Obviously, to see what kind of work that we can do and ways that we can expand the services down there, the ministerial services to the home. But yeah, so that's what I was going to be doing down there. But I should have been back in Africa by now, which is where most of the work is at. Maybe not in Sierra Leone, but Ibrahim's father bought me this bracelet when I was in Sierra Leone last.
Yeah, so Coleman recently been to Sierra Leone, where I was born. So I was born in Sierra Leone, left Sierra Leone 1999. So it was 21 years, and I was telling you earlier, Coleman, it was 21 years in May when I left Sierra Leone.
That is crazy, man.
Yeah. So and you just came back this year.
Yeah, I came back right before I came to Pennsylvania.
Right. So and you got to spend time with my dad and my brother, and I haven't seen them in like over a decade or something like that. Well over a decade, and you were having lunch with them, sending me pictures. I was so jealous.
Yeah. Did your father's foot fixed?
Was that?
Your father had that limp. Did he ever get that?
No, like that would be an elective surgery, and the hospitals are also shut down in Sierra Leone.
Yeah. Thanks. But yeah, I mean, in Africa, I'm working in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, DR Congo, Liberia. We got projects all over there, and then we're just up in Sierra Leone, but yeah. So, but I mean, Lord's been doing some amazing things all over Africa. We were able to to launch that project in DR Congo. And you kind of briefly alluded to it a bit ago, but there's a project in Nairobi, Kenya. And, and it's just so amazing to see what the Holy Spirit's done there with that project. But, you know, when I went there, there weren't any kids there, and it didn't look like it would have ever any chance of being a ministry for children, again, just because of some things that have happened in the past. But God opened up some doors, and while I was there, we were able to rescue 9 kids, which is a crazy story right there, but we're able to rescue 9 kids, and we launched this project with 9 kids. This is a huge facility. It's the best facility I've ever seen out of any project. And so working with the director there, we began to pray, and I said, God, I would love it if by the end of this year, we could have 50 children in this project, which just seemed like an impossible prayer to pray. I want to see 50 children who have no other place to go in this project. And then I continued going all over Africa. I came back to Kenya, and I met with this woman, and when Obama was president, he goes over to Kenya and he gives a speech, and in the speech he says, we need more women like Josephine. And Josephine is a woman who's been working in Kenya for a while. She rescues girls from far north Kenya, and she does a tremendous job at this. You know, she rescues these girls out of forced childhood marriage, which is something that me and I talked about in the past. But she rescues girls out of that, and you know, girls who've been victims of FGM, which is just female genital mutilation. But yeah, but yeah, so she rescues these girls, and just discussing with her, I found out she's really good at rescuing them, but raising a kid is tough, and it's expensive. You know that with Big Dave.
I know.
What it takes to feed David. That's an athlete right there.
Yeah. That kid is in the house, man.
Yeah, but yeah, so but yeah, so through talking with her, we kind of worked out some things. And long story short, when I was back in Kenya, December and January, we had 56 kids in there, which again,
instead of with 9.
Right, and you know, just the Holy Spirit provided in some, you know, miraculous ways to be able to fund those children, and yeah, so the day I got there, we bring in a bunch of these girls who've been rescued out of just some horrendous backgrounds. I've read through all their police reports, just some excruciating things these girls have suffered from. But yeah, to date we have 70 children in that project.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Man, as we are almost out of time. Like, can you believe it? I feel like we just started talking. So as we wrap up the conversation, if you're on this link, if you're on live right now, there's a Zoom link. We are gonna be having a talk. Coleman, do you use Zoom?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so join us. So just click on the Zoom link, man, and just join us. We usually have like a small group discussion. But so as I said, this is my Chat with Friends series, and Coleman was the first one I wanted to have on. And then tomorrow, I'm continuing this tomorrow. I'll be having a group of friends, and we'll be talking about a different topic. So today, as I said, we're kind of looking at things from a global point of view, and tomorrow we'll be looking about things from a more national point of view. So I'll be talking with friends about racial healing and reconciliation. So Coleman, you're welcome to join us too tomorrow if you have time. But you don't know much about the States, so that's why I didn't invite you.
That's Sierra Leone, man.
Yeah. But tomorrow 6 p.m. and you will see the announcement go live tomorrow. But yeah, so Coleman, as we're about to close, I am so thankful for you. I think at some point we need to have a part 3 because I feel like there's so much. Because when you came up, you and I, we had lunch and we just talked for like 4 hours straight, and there's so much we could talk about what the Lord is doing, miracle after miracle. I bring you, the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is for you to inspire people, because just how God is using you is so inspirational. And I think that a lot of people can just be blessed. They can be blessed by just hearing your stories and hearing how God is moving through you, how God is touching lives of, young people. You're not only changing the lives of those young people, but you're changing their future. So as we close, what closing words would you say to the people that are watching this live or would watch this later on?
Yeah, I think in this interview, and if you were there in March, you speaking, you hear some miraculous things. I'm pretty horrible about anything I touch, and I've been able to see the Holy Spirit do some just miraculous things, and that's what you've heard today, just some miraculous things that God's done. And it'd be great for me to say that I'm a great fundraiser or that I'm great at this or that, but what it is that throughout Scripture, we see that God has a major heart for the fatherless. Throughout the Old Testament, it's not just in James where it says pure and undefiled religion is this, taking care of widows and orphans. It's throughout the entire Scripture. It's something that God is very passionate about. And it's not the only thing that God's passionate about. And so whenever you tap into whatever God is very passionate about, you just become a conduit of His work. So it doesn't take a lot of skill, not to demean the work, but it doesn't take a lot of your own aptitude. God can use you to be His hands and His feet for the things He's passionate about. And so, if you read your word and you see something screaming out to you that's a passion for God, step out and do it. And the Lord can use you. Whoever's watching this, the Lord made you so that He could use you, and God wants to use you. Again, you hear miraculous stories like mine. I hope what it doesn't do is it makes it seem like my life is on this pedestal. It is. I'm just every single person is capable of being used by God.
Well, thank you so much, man. And we are praying for you, praying for the kids in Congo that the Lord will protect them from Ebola, from the coronavirus, and from malaria. And man, it's always such a joy to have you join us, man. And I am so proud of you. I love you, and yeah, man. We need to have a part 3 of this because we still have so much that you and I talked about even today that we didn't even cover, man.
Come by like this or however long this takes.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyways, Coleman, join us on the Zoom, and I look forward to seeing you. And if you can click on the Zoom link, we'll have more one-on-one with Coleman. If you want to ask him any questions or just have a dialogue with him, Coleman will be as well on Zoom. Love you guys. God bless you, and have yeah. All right, man. I'll see you soon.
See you.